Alright, today's patch remake is World's 2018 Rise from League of Legends, made by Glitchmob and Mako. Here is the patch, which is this kind of like filtered, distorted string-like patch. Alright. Kind of arpeggiated. Here's a remake. Pretty close. We're just going for that kind of like hard bowed, like a bowed string, like a cello, violin, kind of orchestral thing. That's kind of the vibe we're going for here. So let's start from scratch, as always. Here's what it sounds like with a plain old saw. So first thing to do to get this sort of string texture is we add some unison to this. And I'm actually going to go with more of like an analog saw. You'd be fine to use a regular one. I just like the way this sounds. So I'm going to bring us up to 6 voice unison. And this blend just makes sure all the voices are equal volume. I'm going to bring Detune down. We don't want it to sound pitchy. We just want it to have that nice smear when you get with a bunch of stringed instruments. And I'm going to reduce the width of the unison. Get a little more narrow, a little more focused. And then simply because they did this in the recording, I'm going to pan it to the right a bit. Okay. Now, we want the second oscillator to be the same, but an octave lower. In Serum's case, we can just copy oscillator A to B, and then bring it down an octave. And we still want the upper one to be more noticeable. It's kind of the primary part of the sound, so I brought the level down of oscillator B. So it's just kind of like a lower layer. All right, next, I'm going to bring in some distortion, some tube distortion. I'm going to crank it. So that gives us our dirt. Now we immediately need to filter it afterwards. In this case, for this patch, the filter makes more sense afterwards because we want the distorted sound that then has this rounding, at the end. And this this distortion effect has a filter. You can switch to post and do it here, but I couldn't quite get the sound I wanted. So instead, I just put a filter at the end. So I want a 24 dB filter, make it a little brighter, and then give it a little shape with res. Right? Kind of points, almost gives it sort of a vocal-esque kind of vibe. Now, to really get the string sound, we need to set the amp envelope a certain way. Again, we wanted this like attack bow kind of thing. So we want it to kind of fade in really fast with a short attack. So we'll go like that. And then to give it a kind of right, that immediate sort of attack, we're going to kind of bring our sustain down and then give it a short decay. Actually, before I do that, let me give it some release. Okay, now. Right? When sustain's all the way up, it's kind of very, almost kind of rigid. But when I bring the sustain down with a fast decay, it gives me more of that that sort of bowed attack. You can really see the shape if I zoom in. So there's kind of the beginning of the bow, and then this immediate spike, and then a bit of a short tail for the release. Lastly, our reverb. And we want the reverb to be after the filter. So let's move filter here. We're going to go with a plate, medium size. All right. I want it to be pretty wet. I want no pre-delay in this case. Pre-delay puts a little bit of space between the dry sound and the actual reverb. We want it to blend right in, right? We want the reverb and the dry sound to happen at the same time. And then use low cut to get rid of some of that low mud. All right. there it is. That's the sound. Now I also made a version that uses a sort of a string wavetable. Sounds like this. There we go. Gives you a bit more of like an actual string vibe. It's pretty similar, but this is a cello wavetable. It's from this add-on pack. This doesn't come with Serum, but it's basically a bunch of wavetables with orchestral instruments like strings, horns, that kind of thing. And so this was one for cello. And the key is when you want to use one of these wavetables is you want to take an LFO and modulate the wavetable position. So it's constantly changing the waveform a little bit, because that's what happens with an actual sample, like an actual string sample. It's not this rigid waveform that's repeating over and over again. The waveform is changing and morphing. That's what, you know, a real instrument, a sample sounds like. So you can kind of get that vibe by having the LFO modulate it. So it's just an option if you want a bit more of a realistic kind of string tone. But again, for this patch, it's more just about the filtering, the distortion, and most importantly, the amp envelope. All right, if you like this patch remake and you want to request another one, from your, that you want to hear me do, want to see me do, head over to our forum and post a topic there with a link to the YouTube video. Also, if you're good at doing remakes yourself, take a look at the forum, see what other people are requesting, and see if you can help out.